Hello and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. One of the things that helped us get some really good corn yields this year was improving our test weight. We're going to talk about some of the factors that you can utilize to boost that test weight on your farm too.
Well, thinking about corn, early planting almost always pays in the northern part of the country. But what do you do when the ground's really cold? We're going to talk about our recipe for early planted corn today.
Well, I used to walk around as a kid through tree groves and things looking for rabbits or birds to look at or something, and I kept getting this weed of the week caught on my pant leg. We're going to show you how to stop this really sticky weed coming up later in the show. But first, here's our Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
One of the things that's really changed agriculture here in the last 10 to 20 years has been all this new technology that's going to come out. Because of that, we've been asked by a lot of farmers, hey, can you have an Ag PhD New Technologies Clinic? We're going to do that for the first time this year.
One of the things about new technologies is they often require a major investment on the front side before you really know what your payback's going to be. And on Ag PhD, we really like to focus on this return on investment. And that's going to be one of the things as we look at some of the new technologies available for farmers. We're going to look at that return on investment and see what is the payback if we do this major upgrade.
All right, so one of the things most talked about here in the last few years has been satellite imagery. That's one of the new technologies we're going to be talking about, not just what it is, but how you can use it and how it can improve the profitability on your farm.
Well, the other thing that we've definitely seen improving the profitability on our farm and others has been some of the improvements being made with equipment, especially on the planter. Getting that seed placed just right is so critical. We've got some interesting research to look at about how important that really is.
We'll also talk about some of the new pesticides on the market, but I think some of the more interesting things would include the biologicals. A lot of people are talking about all these new natural products that there are out there, so we're going to cover some of those during our new technologies workshop as well.
So for non-farmers out there listening to this, you're saying, wow, are there really that many new technologies in agriculture? Yes, this is an exciting and rapidly changing industry. And for farmers to keep up, they're often looking for places to go to find a non-biased look at what are these new technologies really going to bring for value to my farm and in food production. So at Ag PhD, we're going to have for the first time, a new technologies clinic just focused on this exact topic.
We invite you to go to agphd.com to learn more, and please pre-register for this clinic so we're sure to have enough seats, enough books, and enough food for everyone who attends.
Farmers are always looking for new answers to solve problems on the farm. One of those challenges may be our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?
Leading the charge in strip tillage for more than a decade, the Soil Warrior brings the future to your farm today.
Ideal for herbicide applications, the ultra-low drifts large air-inducted droplets were designed to eliminate driftable fines without sacrificing coverage. Its thick three-dimensional pattern creates multiple angles for the spray to cover the target. Hypro, helping you spray better.
Spend some serious farmer time in Anaheim when Commodity Classic heads to California Tuesday, February 27th through Thursday, March 1st. Education that will change the way you think about your farm. Innovators who are changing the game in agriculture. The new ideas, equipment, and technology you won't find at your local farm show. And you can tack on a weekend with a family for a little R&R before you head home. Grow beyond at the 2018 Commodity Classic in Anaheim. Visit commodityclassic.com.
Let's face it, Joe. Some of these guys aren't easy to play. Biologicals are expensive. Humates and plant growth regulators are messy.
Yeah, but AgroLiquid has 4 new players that have really eliminated those problems. The Primer Grow line has helped their team realize the benefits.
Wait, so season-long nutrition and optimized yields while creating a biologically active soil?
That's right. Primer Grow line is a fantastic addition to AgroLiquid's stellar team.
Smart farming is playing hockey with my son.
All right, sweetie, you excited to go?
Yeah. Smart farming is going on more family vacations.
Smart farming is getting some much needed rest.
Smart farming is spending more time doing what you love. Make it happen with Farm Command.
In life, when you put the max in, you get the max out. It's no different for your corn, which is why 40 years of effort have gone into proving that Instinct and N-Serve nitrogen stabilizers do more than just stabilize nitrogen, they maximize nitrogen, so your corn gives you the max in return.
One of the things we talk a lot about here at Ag PhD is improving corn yields. One of the most important things you can do, especially if you're in the northern part of the country, is plant early. But what do you do when the soil temp is still 45 degrees? For me, I plant.
Well, this is a hot topic of discussion, especially as you talk to some of the highest yielding producers in the world who will say, you know what, if you can get a warm soil temp, it's going to be less stress on your crop.
Yes, I agree.
If we had that option in the extreme northern part of the Corn Belt, we would take that, but we don't. We've got a limited growing season, so we need to get out there early. So there are a few things that we've learned over the years that have really improved performance in early planted situations.
Okay, one of the first myths that I want to talk about too is this imbibitional chilling that you may have heard about. I think that's nonsense. We've done those studies ourselves, and what we find is, now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's nonsense that it doesn't exist, because it does. If you do nothing else to the seed. If you had regular untreated seed corn, yes, then cold temperatures, cold soil temperatures, cold water getting thrown on the plant, that becomes a real problem. But there are other things we can do to get around that, and that's the focus of our discussion today.
Before we get too far, let's just outline what we're going to talk about today, because there's really 4 key things that we want to see to help that seed perform well, even in an early planted situation. We want to see fertilizer in close proximity to the seed. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about biological products that can also help with things. And then we'll talk about stopping diseases and insects from hurting your seed.
Okay, the first thing, because it's kind of out there, is this whole biological side. There are a couple of products that we've used here in the last few years that have really helped. Quick Roots is one we've been talking about for about 10 years. That's a beneficial bacteria and fungi. There's this Nutricycle product that we've only been talking about for the last couple of years. That's a combination of over 20 different biologicals. So we're doing both. And what we've seen in our tests, not only in the lab, but in the field, is we're getting faster emergence and we're getting more nutrients into the plant. So this is a really big deal in cold soils. It's absolutely made a difference for us in colder soil conditions. We've got to get the best possible environment for that crop right away, because let's face it, in cold soils, there isn't a lot of root growth, and also a lot of nutrients aren't very available. So we have to make things more available, and with some of the biologicals, we can do just that.
And speaking of nutrition and having it available for the plant, you're in control of that. Putting a little bit of fertilizer right in the furrow, you could even put some in a 2x2 if you want to do a little bit more with the planter, provides fertility that's really close and accessible for that plant. The other key that you want to watch out for is high salt load products. So you want to make sure that you're not putting a lot of salt in close proximity to the seed, but you have good, highly available fertilizer sources there for the plant.
Yep, but the key again, low salt, low rate. You got to do that, otherwise you can actually hurt seed germination. That's not good.
Well, one thing that can definitely hurt seed germination is insects. And we talk a lot about corn rootworms whenever we're raising corn, and I get it. That is a very important economic pest. However, there's a lot of secondary bugs as well that can really impact your yield. You look at seed corn maggots and wireworms and seed corn beetles and grubs. All those bugs are going to attack that plant really early. The longer your seed lays there in the soil without emerging, well, the more time there is for those bugs to feed on it.
Okay, the fourth thing that we talked about here is fungicide. Now, we don't see as much gain when soils warm up, but boy, when soils are colder, the seed is just more subject to catch disease. That's a big problem. Now, there are a lot of inexpensive fungicides anymore. The price on fungicides is really coming down, but we would suggest you use some fungicide in furrow. That is a good investment when that soil is cold.
Brian, we hear from farmers all across the country. What are you talking about? Fungicide? There's already fungicide on my seed. But how many of you actually know what fungicides are on there, or even your seed dealers? Most people aren't paying attention to that seed treatment on corn because the seed corn company does it. It comes in the bag. It's not a choice that you have to make. But you do need to be aware of what those fungicides are, because oftentimes what we're seeing in the industry is the same 2 or 3 fungicides being used over and over and over again when there are better choices out there in the market that you could add in furrow.
And in addition to that, some seed companies are moving to newer fungicides placed on the seed. If you can get those, boy, that's great too. Hey, one other thing that I was going to mention, and it's not in our 4 steps there, but it's just planting that seed right. You absolutely, and this seems to be more of a factor when the soil is cold, but you absolutely want to have that right depth. You want to have consistent depth and consistent spacing. If you do all those things, I do not mind if that soil is cold. I would be perfectly fine planting my corn when the soil temp is 40 degrees and I'm dead serious. I'm going to look more at the calendar than I am at the soil temp, because don't forget that soil temp can vary 5 to 10 degrees in one day. I'm going to look at the calendar. I don't care if the soil temp is cold, but if the soil temp is going to be cold, I'm absolutely doing these other 4 steps. Again, what we're talking about here is insecticide, fungicide, fertilizer, and biologicals, all right there in furrow or on the seed.
The other thing that's important to be successful in any field is controlling our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?
There are 6,272,640 square inches in an acre. We counted. Why? Because we designed the TigerMate 255 field cultivator and 2000 series early riser planter to maximize every single one. So when you create the most level seed bed in the industry and target a nickel-size area to plant a seed and never miss, you'll know in high-efficiency farming, there's one name to count on: Case IH. Rethink productivity. Learn more at caseih.com/everyinch.
Grow your incentives, not weeds. Earn an additional $6 per acre in cash back when you apply XtendiMax herbicide with Vapor Grip technology on your Roundup Ready 2 Xtend soybeans, along with endorsed herbicides from Roundup Ready Plus Crop Management Solutions. Now you have the right tools to manage weeds and your bottom line. Visit growyouриncentives.com to see your total incentives opportunity.
This agro-liquid line is something special. A lot of really impressive playmakers. Take a look at Sure K. This guy is an enigma.
But wrap your head around the exceptionally high plant response when compared to conventional potassium sources, the research-proven plant availability, plus flexible application options and mixing capabilities.
Really stellar performance stats. Sure K is a true standout, and that's a winning goal on any field.
We raise corn, beans, and then about 7,500 head of hogs a year. About 800 acres of beans this year. All 800 are Liberty Link this year. Our biggest weed pressure is definitely the water hemp. That's why we switched to Liberty Link. We were Roundup Ready, and we had some resistance. I got sprayed 3 times one year that didn't even come close to killing them. So the next year we switched to Liberty Link, thinking we'd switch back and forth every year, and Liberty Link performed so well we never switched back. We have a test plot that had Roundup and Liberty Link right next to each other, and the Liberty Link out-yielded it the past 5 years. It's very important to have good weed control. For one, it just looks better to look at a nice clean field, but yield-wise it's also very important.
The Liberty Link system has a 2+ bushel per acre yield advantage over Asgrow Roundup Ready to Xtend soybeans. More at libertylinkadvantage.bayer.us. Always read and follow label instructions.
Commodity Classic is an early adopter's paradise. This is where what's next happens, where you can meet the people who are changing the way you farm. From the jaw-dropping trade show to outstanding educational sessions to one-on-one conversations with other farmers from across the nation. You'll be among the first to experience the new ideas, innovations, and technology that can help your operation grow beyond. Spend some farmer time in Anaheim, Tuesday, February 27th through Thursday, March 1st. Discover more at commodityclassic.com.
One of the aspects of yield that many farmers are starting to focus on is improving test weight in many different crops.
All right, so what does this really amount to? What are you gonna have to do in order to improve your test weight? The first thing I'm always looking at is soil fertility. And it's not just throwing a bunch of nutrients out there. It's trying to get your soil overall in balance. For example, if you way overdo it with nitrogen and you don't have nearly enough potassium, that's probably not a good thing, and most likely you're not going to have the test weight that you're looking for. So when I think test weight, the first nutrients I'm thinking about are P and K. Yes, everybody knows you got to put lots of nitrogen on certain crops, but how much phosphorus, how much potassium do you need? That's really a big key.
Well, there are also a number of micronutrients that are important when it comes to test weight, so don't forget about the complete package. Like Brian said, you want to hit those big ones, but also measure your soil for all the nutrients out there so you can keep up with micronutrients as well.
Okay, in addition to that, it's when are these nutrients available? So let's say you have a light soil. Just putting them all on up front probably isn't going to do it. You got to think about, all right, when that crop is filling, when the ear is filling, when the pods are filling, at that late season date, do I have ample nutrients getting into the crop? Now, you also may say, hey, I live in a dry area of the country, I'm non-irrigated, and I just need more rainfall so more nutrients get in. Look, if you're in that situation, we are, for example, what we find is we actually have to have higher levels of nutrients in the soil. We have to have a greater concentration because we have less moisture. So I want you to be thinking about that too, and that's one of the reasons we look at potassium, for example, not just parts per million, but what is the percentage in the soil? So if I'm going for big time yields, you know, maybe 4% base saturation K isn't enough. Maybe in a dry area of the country, when I'm going for super high yields, I got to have 6% or 7% base saturation K. All I'm saying here is somehow, some way, you've got to get nutrients into that plant when that plant is filling its seed.
Well, along those lines, we need to have good plant health all throughout the season. If we can keep our plant alive longer through the season, we'll extend our grain fill period. Another thing that can extend that period in corn, for example, we see some farmers planting different maturities out within the same field. On our farm at the end of the year, a lot of times we'll end up with a little bit of this seed, a little bit of that seed, and it ends up getting mixed together in one field. And we see the pollination window and the grain fill window just extending in that field too. When you've got more time to fill the grain, you have more time to pack nutrients into the grain. So anything you can do to extend that window is important.
Well, it can be. And you know, when you talk about the maturity of the crop, sure, that's possible, that could help. And obviously there is a genetic component to this. Certain genetics are going to give you more test weight and certain genetics a little bit less. But what I really want to focus on is trying to keep that plant alive as long as possible. How do you do that? You've got to have great insect control, disease control, weed control, and then coming back to that fertility piece as well. If you do all those things, you might actually be harvesting a green crop or a green stalk and leaves, but the seed has dried down enough to harvest.
One other thing that we really should mention, and it's not specifically linked to test weight, but we look at soil pH. And when we've got a soil pH that's out of the ideal range, what we find is that nutrient availability is poor. So I mentioned some micronutrients before, that micronutrients were important, and things like copper and boron and manganese, and there's a number of them, that availability improves as we get that pH back to that ideal range.
The last thing I wanted to mention is soil organic matter. And just like Darren said on soil pH, you know, I've never really seen any studies that show me, oh, better organic matter levels for sure lead to better test weight. But I just want you to think about a couple of things along those lines. What did we talk about all during this segment here? It's nutrient availability, especially as we go later in the season. Well, I think about organic matter in a couple ways in regards to that. Number one is mineralization. We know for a fact that if we have higher levels of organic matter, as the soil warms up, more of that organic matter breaks down and releases nutrients that include nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur. So in other words, you're going to have higher levels of nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur naturally in your soil late in the season if you have good levels of organic matter. In addition to that, we know that if you have good levels of organic matter, you have more of a spongy type soil. You're going to have less compaction, you're going to have better soil porosity, and ultimately you should have more root growth because there's more air a little deeper into that soil. Well, if you have more root growth, again, you've got a more stable plant, a more healthy plant, a plant that should be able to support better yields and certainly higher test weights.
I've talked about some of the factors that you should consider to try to improve test weight on your farm. As Brian mentioned, there are many good general farming practices that you need to do. You also just need to make sure you've got good nutrient availability and a long time for that plant to push that into the grain and into those kernels so you can build test weight on your farm. One other thing you want to control on your farm is our Weed of the Week. We'll show you how to stop this weed coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is brought to you by Dow AgroSciences. Finish the fight against tough weeds with the Enlist Weed Control System.
Weeds are tough, but we're tougher. With unrivaled weed control, reduced drift, and near zero volatility. So, who's tough now?
Our Weed of the Week is catchweed bedstraw.
It's an interesting weed. I like catchweed bedstraw from an identification standpoint because it's got a square stem and it's got these short little bristly hairs that really cling to things like Velcro. So if you're out looking around at something in a tree grove, for example, or in a grassy area, if you've got catchweed bedstraw, chances are it will find your pant leg.
Well, I'm just wondering why you're wearing Velcro around all the time, Darren, but let's talk about control of this particular weed. How you're going to do it, in most cases, is simply 2,4-D. We don't have a real big problem out in crop ground, so that's why I'm focused on the non-crop areas. And also, let me just say, when I throw out the words 2,4-D, you might be thinking about old amine or ester. I don't want you using those products anymore. There's a new 2,4-D choline, has way less volatility. We're less concerned about spray drift. This is a big deal in these non-crop areas. So use Freelex, use it at a good strong rate, and you should have good control of catchweed bedstraw.
Well, let's look specifically in crop. When we think about catchweed bedstraw, it's an annual weed. So tillage is something that could be used to wipe it out. It could get a start in the fall, or it could be coming in the spring. So it's one of those weeds that could germinate in various times of the year. I would get out there with a burn down if you've got it out ahead in no-till. Again, Brian mentioned you could use 2,4-D or dicamba in crops where they would be labeled. In corn, I like verdict down. If you've got some weeds that are up, the verdict will burn them off. Then in crop, I really like status. In soybeans, I like to start with one of the Authority products in the tank with Metribuzin, our 3-pre strategy. We can do a nice job on catchweed bedstraw. Then post-emerge, I like Liberty Link or Extend beans. Both of those herbicide options, Liberty and Extend, will be really effective on catchweed bedstraw. And in wheat, that's probably the crop where we see it a little bit more. You can start with Sharpen in a burn down and as a pre-emerge treatment and do a really nice job on catchweed bedstraw. Then come back post-emerge. There's a number of things that can work. I like a high rate of Husky.
That's it for our Weed of the Week, catchweed bedstraw, but stay tuned, Iron Talk is coming up next.
Are you looking for an easy way to apply dry powdered products to your stored grain? Do you want to use the applicator recommended by industry leaders for products like Diacon D and other dry powder products? Changing Time CT applicators successfully apply a diversity of products quickly, easily, and accurately. The innovative CT applicators are designed to give you the most accurate application of products such as talc, inoculants, fertilizers, and other dry products. For commercial use or on the farm, you need the applicator industry leaders are using. CT applicators for the changing times.
Unlock the nutrients in your soil with Tag Team LCOXC Liquid Soybean, a triple-action biological product that helps improve nutrient access. Together with the LCO molecule, a rhizobia delivers nitrogen-fixing benefits, while an additional microbe makes phosphate in the soil more available. 3 powerful technologies in one extra concentrated formulation. See how it can help your yield potential at monsantobioag.com/unlock.
In life, when you put the max in, you get the max out. It's no different for your corn, which is why 40 years of effort have gone into proving that Instinct and N-Serve nitrogen stabilizers do more than just stabilize nitrogen, they maximize nitrogen. So your corn gives you the max in return.
Introducing the SoilMax ZD48, the newest addition to the SoilMax Gold Digger lineup. The first plow designed for smaller class tractors, the ZD48 has been tested on tractors weighing between 10,000 and 16,000 pounds with excellent results. Designed for row crop farms, vineyards, irrigation, and specialty crop farms. The SoilMax ZD48 will install tile up to 48 inches deep, as well as install 3 or 4-inch tile. The ZD48 truly opens up the world of tile installation to more farms than ever before.
Our Morton is so much more to us than just a building. It's a place where we spend time with friends. It's a place where we hold family gatherings. It's become very important to us.
Morton Buildings. For work. For life. For generations. Contact us now during our annual sales event to save on your next building.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
There are 6,272,640 square inches in an acre. We counted. Why? Because we designed the TigerMate 255 field cultivator and 2000 series early riser planter to maximize every single one. So when you create the most level seed bed in the industry and target a nickel-size area to plant a seed and never miss, you'll know in high-efficiency farming, there's one name to count on. Case IH. Rethink productivity. Learn more at caseih.com/everyinch.
If you're trying to increase yield and profitability, chances are you may be looking for a way to add another liquid product at some point in the planting process this spring. Mixing several things together, though, is a risky proposition, so we've got a solution for you in today's Iron Talk. Here's how planting season goes on our farm. I like to use a liquid fertilizer mix in furrow. However, our research over the last few years has also shown a positive return on investment adding insecticide, fungicide, and a couple different biologicals and PGRs. That's a lot of stuff. The challenge with all these good ideas is that mixing them together, well, that just doesn't work. Now, there can be antagonism where one of the fungicides kills off some of the biologicals. There can also be mixing problems where the entire solution turns to gunk. Plus, many of these types of products require precise and even minute rates. There are a number of equipment solutions to this dilemma. Dosatrons have grown in popularity once again as they're very simple to operate and inexpensive to add to your planting setup. They don't require fancy electronics or complicated wiring either. Dosatrons work by putting a desired percentage of a product, such as xanthian fungicide, into the flow of a product like liquid fertilizer. So as 5 gallons of starter fertilizer flows through the lines, the Dosatron can add other products accurately to the solution. We have a setup that can apply a product anywhere from 0.2% up to 2% of the total solution, but there are Dosatrons that can do up to 10% depending on the product that you're trying to add. For the tank, Dosatron, and connectors, we only spent about $800. It's simple to use and an inexpensive addition to your planting setup. Now, if you're adding quite a bit to your in-furrow program like we are, a Dosatron may be something to consider adding on your farm. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
The Quick Belt from Norwood Sales is your all-around grain handling solution. Our conveyor-based system uses an 18-inch belt and a 10-inch tube, which minimizes seed damage while moving more than 10,000 bushels an hour. Keep your grain and your farm moving with the Quick Belt from Norwood Sales.
That's all the time we have for today's show, but before we go, we want to invite you to tune in to the Ag PhD radio show. You'll find us on SiriusXM channel 147 at 2 p.m. Central each weekday.
And don't miss the next Ag PhD TV show. We'll have another Weed of the Week, Farm Basics, Iron Talk, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
Soil is nature's filter to keep contaminants out of our water. To learn how farmers manage soil and groundwater, visit the Responsible Nutrient Management Foundation at rnmf.org.